Mhuri yeZimbabwe makadii matimana enyika yeZimbabwe kusangana zvekare pano pachivhitivhiti paTV yenyu patinenge tichikupai nyaya dzakasiyana-siyana dzinenge dzichiitika munyika yeZimbabwe. Mamiriro azvakaita mhuri yeZimbabwe ndeyekuti tine nyaya huru iri kubva kuna comrade sister vedu pano yatichada kuti tikuonesei nekuda kwezvinhu zviri kuitika munyika yeZimbabwe. Ndofunga muri kuziva kuti timu Rebirth Diaspora vane mamwe macontribution avanoita pano avanenge vachitipa kuti tikunzwisei tikupei munzwe zvezvimwe zvinhu zvinenge zvichiitika munyika yeZimbabwe. Naizvozvo ndinoda kuti munzwisise zvinhu zviri pano, mozotudzawo zvamunofunga mucomment section. Tinokutendai nesapoti nekusubscribe kwenyu pano pachannel. Ndichakusiyai makatirira kubva kwavari motudzawo zvamunofunga.
That it causes stunted growth, intellectual growth. So they are functioning on basic level thinking. And that's why we are not progressive as a country. Basic level thinking. Kungoyenda online, consume numbers, and then think you progress a country. I like to use examples so we can relate to things in the reality. So we are talking about employment rate and unemployment rate. Let's use something we can relate to, which is supposed to represent the contribution of the employed. HIV levy. What was it created for? It is created to capture revenue through contributions from deductibles through employment. You contribute your percentile into that national fund. What is the national fund for? Is to create these things ZANU-PF likes to talk about. That Mugabe, sovereignty, domestic capacity to look after yourselves and reduce dependency from something. Sovereignty. So let's look at this contribution. Only about 20% of the Zimbabwean population contributes to this important thing. 20%. Our reliance on the institutions and the states that you consider enemies and saboteurs of our system still are our masters, because you have not improved your employment so that you can capture the money you need. So no matter how much you try and sell us 80% of people, look at what you created employment for. What's employment created for? Why do we encourage growth in population? So that we can capture the working population for the longest time they are alive. To do what? To work. Now, this formula that you are looking at, Ankuche, it's very finicky. So it looks at things like what I was talking about, underemployment. Underemployment is based on what? What is it based on? We create employment in our country. These sectors are for the things we need to solve problems we have in our country. Then we do business that employs people, or people create businesses that they will be employed in. Operative word is employment, not work, because munhu wese works in order to survive. Munhu wese, amai vangu, works. Now, what is the difference between her working? She, amai kumba, back garden, she can grow chibage chake. She's got a small household, her and my dad and my nephew. So if she does a fumvuza in the back garden, she can have her 56 buckets of 20 kgs for the year. Is my mother employed? No. Why is employment important for the African people? Now, Bata here, I'm conscientizing you. I love to teach. This was Ataka. We are not slaves. We do not donate labor. People who donate labor are called slaves. And that is what they are capturing in these statistics that tell us of growth. They capture working people as employed people. Now, what is employment? Employment is when your labor is compensated. Time is money, that word. Very important. Time is money. So every other country who uses this matrix that they are using, what is the significant thing you see them paying you for? Time. And then they say, a working population must contribute at least 35 hours a week. And then what do? They set a barometer. Nothing of your time should be costed less than this amount. Otherwise, you are a what? A slave. Zimbabwe captures work as employment. So if I go to market and buy my tomatoes angu $5 a bucket, go and sell them and make $1 more. Have I worked, Uncle Jet? Has my labor been counted into this cost? Have I made a profit, Uncle Jet? I've $1 more than I had yesterday. It took me the whole of today to sell my tomatoes.
No.
My labor to go to the tomatoes, sitting pamusika, and I made money. I paid for them $8. Now I have $9. In the middle here, all this time that I was doing here to make that dollar, has it been paid for? No.
No.
Same nevanhu vari kuchengeta huku, they just calculate how much did I pay feed, how much did this cost me in that, how much. Labor is not counted, it's free, donated. Time is free. That person is not employed. They just work, just like my mother. So that is what is important for African countries to understand. You are not slaves to the world, where you merely just go and grow things, calculate the mbeu, the renting, the tractor, and then you didn't calculate the hours your children were in the field. You didn't calculate your time that was in the field. You didn't calculate the seasonal time that it took you to be waiting for Chibake. Those 3 months, no one calculated that. You just calculate in the end how much I spent on this endeavor and how much do I have back. So you are not employed, you are working. So that is what creates this. No matter how much they tweak it to the nuances in our country, we only have 20% of people who work in Zimbabwe. Because for the things we want to deduct from employment, the only people who can do that who have time. I haven't even gone to finicky things that need to be paid for. I've not compensated you for skill. I've not done that, Uncle Jet. I've not compensated you for innovation at all. You just gave it to me for Mahara. So when we look at these rates, we should look at what is it that they are contributing relative to what we wanted to capture as deductions from their gainful employment. That's why we have brackets, tax brackets. Tax brackets are relative to what the compensation or the remuneration was. And that's why you see Uncle Jet, Kuchinzi, inini I only pay 20% because really the job I do, they just paid me for time. There was no recompensation for skill, for all those other things. These are low-level workers. Tirunko badarirwa time. Then the higher up you go, we start to pay you for more things. That's why Nonzi, if you are earning this much, go back and retool, reskill, do so that the compensation becomes what? Proportionate. Then the higher up you go, right, that you are being compensated for, we deduct more because you are able to have those deductibles. But in Zimbabwe, you are continuing slavery because the revenue that you are supposed to be capturing from an active workforce cannot contribute to those things because they are not being paid for working. They are not employed. You just have slaves all over the country, subsistence people who are just raramaring. They are not employed. So this informal sector is problematic in matrices. As long as that informal sector has no capacity to have their gainful employment, formally or informal, to be captured in revenue. Self-employed people in the UK can contribute to the taxes, can't they? If you start earning money with social media, you will register yourself as having an income, which means from your contribution, be it time, be it that you are selling content, you were paid, we capture that as income. Your work was compensated to some point. That's why government say, if you start making so much money, I need you, I'll give you a tax bracket. Only fans, I make this example all the time, only fans, girls in America, to register on OnlyFans, the American government has a tax code that they have to register in. They are employed. In Zimbabwe, you pay people who are employed by Facebook and buy them GT6s, Aquas, and Raptors. Yet they are not your workforce. They are Elon Musk's workforce. They are TikTok's workforce. They are Facebook workforce. They are Mark Zuckerberg's workforce. So the number you're looking for, Uncle Jet, calculate it from where Zimbabwe intended in its policy to capture revenue from employed people. And that number is less than 20% of employed people. We are still slaves and dependent. That's why when Trump just did a cursoring about removing aid, HIV, we were shaking because we depend on employed people to contribute to that basket. And they contribute about 30 to 50 million annually. Think about it, Uncle Jet. And that number keeps fluctuating. And that tells you the number of employed people. You understand? So we are in dire unemployment. The rest of this drama that they want to tell you about korokozas, about this and that, about what, those are just people who work to survive, just like every human being who's an adult works. Ndaisona right now in my house so that I don't have to buy a new pair of trousers. That is not employment. That's just me doing things I need to do kurarama. You cannot look at a woman, Pamsika, and say that's an employed person. That's not employment. She's not compensated for anything. Chingotora zwinu from there, take them there, tora zwinu in the middle here. That's just a slave. Kana muchitora matrixes from the people who you think are superior economies, Understand how they set them up and how they manage them, how they monitor them, and how they evaluate them. That's why they know specifically what is the cost of the bread basket. If you ask these fools, in Zimbabwe, what is the cost of our bread basket? Why is it important? So that you can understand whether the people who you say are employed can meet it, because the reason they are working is to survive. Is it now making survival? Most Zimbabweans who they say work cannot meet the cost per week of a bread basket. That bread basket cost is unknown. Unknown. A country that can function and create fiscal policies and cannot tell you the cost of a bread basket for a single person, for a household with 2 kids, for a household with 4 kids. Tell me how they are calculating how much they can pay civil servants. Tell me, if they've never calculated the cost of labor, they are still using the matrix of Cecil John Rhodes. Cecil John Rhodes in 2025, where the cost of a black person's labor is non-existent, doesn't exist. Ndio anapadari. People in our peer group, people who say they are working in a decolonizing agenda, are still using matrices of people who sought to colonize us, who cheat you into believing that you working is you being employed.